Fools for Thought.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fools for Thought. This is episode number 10, a show that takes a look at everyday topics with a little sarcasm and just a bit of humor. Alex, are you watching the Ncaa basketball tournament by any chance?
I am, and I'm actually very heartbroken at the moment.
Who's your team, buddy?
The Arizona Wildcats, and they unfortunately got pretty crushed by the Badgers from Wisconsin earlier, and what was supposed to be the rematch of... It was supposed to be one of the big games of the tournament, because last year, I don't know if you watched, but the Badgers beat the Wildcats by 1 point in overtime at the buzzer. So, I mean, even at the first set of overtime, it was just barely, and it was awesome. But this game... The first quarter started off great. It looked like the Badgers were dominating. Wildcats came back to take an early lead, but then towards the end, it's just like they ran out of steam, and it was kind of sad to watch. So a little bit down that my team got knocked out, and I'm also down that all my brackets are completely bupkis. My predictions and all three of my brackets are completely destroyed.
Well, I only caught the last half of the Arizona-Wisconsin game, and it was amazing. I mean, it seemed like Wisconsin could just throw up the ball from midcourt blindfolded, and they would all go in. Their shooting from behind the three-point line was something like 85% or something stupid and ridiculous like that. So Arizona was outmatched by Wisconsin's offense. But, this brings up an interesting topic about the NCAA, and that's really what this show is about. It's the question of whether college athletes, or what they call amateurs, should be paid to play their sports. It's effectively a job for them. It's what they do. It brings the university a lot of money and recognition every single year. So should these players get paid? Let's just take the NCAA organization for the purposes of this discussion. So it generates nearly $1 billion in just television revenue alone off of these games. And of course, the March Madness is where they generate the majority of those revenues. TV spots during the Final Four can run several $100,000. Players' names are printed on jerseys, of course, to sell. Their likenesses are used in video games. Their faces at times are even plastered up on billboards. The NCAA is directly profiting off of these players. All told, the NCAA brings in around $6 billion annually. So should these players get paid for what they do? Well, most people who do not believe players should get paid cite that these scholarships are effectively providing these students with free education. Of course, if a player gets injured while he plays the sport, that brings the university so many millions of dollars every single year. He will probably lose his scholarship if he cannot continue playing. And of course, if he's outperformed by other players in the league or even on his own team, he will most likely lose his scholarship then as well. But really, how much of an education are these players actually getting? Consider the scandal from the University of North Carolina. I'm sure many of you have heard about this, where the school is being accused of creating what amounts to a bogus African American studies course that players, many of whom can't hardly read at anything greater than a grade school level, by the way, take and practically do nothing in but pass. Over the last 18 years, 1,500 students have taken this class, and of course, all of them have passed. And this is only one case that has been brought to light. I mean, how many other schools are passing, or shall we say, quote unquote, helping their better athletes in classes so they can remain eligible to play a sport that brings in millions of dollars in revenue for that university? I believe the NCAA should effectively be treated just like any other business in the free market, because that's really what it is. That's what it's doing. These kids are of legal age and can enter into a contract to play highly lucrative sports just like anybody else. And the fact is, the $1 billion revenues brought in every year would not be possible if it's not for the hard work and the hours of practice and dedication and determination from these so-called student athletes. These kids really do bring in so much revenue for their schools, and the schools, quite frankly, in my opinion, should pay for that privilege. Labeling these players student athletes or amateurs really, I mean, that does not put aside the fact that these players are putting these schools effectively on the map. They increase revenues. They enhance exposure of the school. Let's face it. If you're a football player, who wouldn't want to play for, the University of Alabama or the University of Oregon? Or if you're a basketball player, you probably want to play for Arizona or Wisconsin or Kentucky. These kids are building the brands essentially that these schools use to pull in their revenues, increase their recognition and exposure out there in this world. So, in my humble opinion, let's stop the exploitation under the guise of labeling them amateurs and treat this like a free market business. These players are providing effectively a service for both the university and the NCAA. They are out there every other day working hard to bring in these revenues. Their names are being used on jerseys. Their likenesses are being used in video games. And at the moment, they get absolutely nothing in return except for sometimes a half-assed education. Alex, what do you think about this? Do you believe that athletes should be paid, or would you consider them truly amateurs or student athletes? And if they're good enough to make it on into the professional ranks, then we can talk about some heavy paychecks. But while they're in college, we probably shouldn't institute a lot of money into this mix.
So if they were just playing and they were just going to school and there was no merchandising, no video games, no use of their likeness, I think a tuition is fair. I mean, hey, you're not really getting anything. The school's not getting more than, the ability to play the basketball games and stuff like that. That's fine. But the second you start using these kids' faces and names on jerseys, you start selling merchandise, you start putting them in video games, you start making extra profit off them in all these other areas, they have to receive a residual from that. You are using that individual's image, their personality, their skill and their talent, and they really should be compensated for it. I mean, on top of it too, when you take somebody who's going to your school and they're really expressly for your sports program, not really for your education. Let's dispense with that myth right there. You really aren't giving them a service by saying, hey, if you can't play because of an injury, we're going to withdraw the scholarship. It's not like you're really good, we want you to play. As long as you're physically able to play, we'll give you a full ride scholarship, and you have to complete it. They don't make those agreements. That would be fair. I mean, if you went to Cornell as a basketball player, which they don't have a very good basketball team, why? Think about it. What does this university profit?
There.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Education is paramount. That would be okay. And if they didn't use their name and stuff, I'd understand that. I'd actually understand, because you are getting fair market value then. But when it comes to taking these kids to going to like the University of Arizona, Kentucky, or Duke even, these guys are there to promote and make money for the school. And it's not just the school, but the NCAA league itself that makes a ton of money off of them. EA Sports that makes a ton of money off of them when they release a game about them with the kids' names, stats, heights, weight, everything about them on there. So it is completely unfair. In fact, they are getting paid. It's just other people are stealing it from them. That's what most people don't realize. When you go out and you buy these jerseys, when you go buy this stuff, some of this money should be going, residuals to that, player. But it's not. It's actually being held by the people who are making profit from this, whether it's a school, whether it's a garment manufacturer. That profit margin is actually being held. And they like that because it gives them more money. It's very lucrative. In the NBA, yes, they do, but they're a little smarter about it. They have contracts, they have residual things. They can afford to hire a lawyer to represent them properly. So when you buy a jersey that's an NBA jersey, yeah, the player probably only gets 2 or 3% of it, but think about how much that is for using his name. Whereas in the NCAA, they're getting 0. And they are kids. They are younger. There is a 1-over-1 power relationship from the school to the teen, especially because they do target lower income individuals. They do target people who didn't have the ability to go essentially pursue higher education things. They came from areas where they relied more on their physical talents and crafted them because it's cheap. It's easy. You can, a basketball court in the middle of the inner city is free. A basketball is very cheap. And studying in, something that requires a lot of, let's say a computer, you want to be a computer programmer, you have to buy a computer, you have to buy software for it, you have to have an internet connection, you have to have all this extra stuff, electricity to run it, all this jazz, whereas somebody who wants to go to college to play eventually in the NBA, all they need is a basketball and dedication and a little bit of natural talent to forge that, right? So you're really preying upon these kids at the end of the day. And yeah, some of them do make it into the NBA, a very small percentage. We're talking a super small percentage. Even of NCAA stars, it's a very small percentage.
Oh, yeah, it's incredibly small.
So the other part of this argument also is that half these kids don't get anything. They don't go onto the NBA. They don't get an education from the school. They get dumped on the side of the road. And this is after they've been there for 2 or 3 years. This isn't like they got dumped 6 months in. No, they play there for 2, 3, even 4 years, and they get dumped because they aren't, they are redshirted, early, and they don't want to keep them around because they're not as good as they thought they would be, or because their eligibility's up and they're done. All sorts of things, and they don't leave with a college education at all because they have no money. Very little money to begin with. Number two, they were focused all on basketball, not on their education, so their grades are pretty poor. Usually in a major that's like communications or something that won't net them more than $20,000 or $30,000 in the open market. Why would you spend $20,000, $30,000 a year to go there to earn that degree, right? It's not financially solvent. And so they're really getting screwed in all multiple ends. And you could argue that, they don't have to play basketball, and I go, well, sure, but you also don't have to exploit an individual through these bogus, their amateur rules that you come up at, because they have a monopoly on the system. It's not like you can just go play for any college. All the colleges have got together and they've decided this is how it's going to run. It's a complete oligarchy, and it's endorsed by our government. Our government completely sponsors it and supports it. In an open free market, this wouldn't last because there are laws that are put into effect that if you give a player something, you remember what happened at the Trojans school, USC. University of Southern California. They were giving players, cars and other things to entice them to come to their school to play. And they were found out about this, and they were suspended for 4 years, I believe, or 3 years from actually being able to participate in the Pac-12. At the time, Pac-10. So, there are rules to keep the schools from trying to enter into open market competition with the students to reward them for their skills, efforts, and publicity that they bring to the school. So it's very much an orchestrated oligarchy, monolithic system that's supported by our government.
Yeah, and right now we're right in the middle of March Madness. We just passed the Elite Eight, I believe now, and each win that these schools achieve in this tournament, in this highly publicized tournament, the schools are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars of victory money, essentially, passed to them from the NCAA, and these schools, in theory, use that money to invest further in their educational programs, or even to build new additions to their stadiums or basketball arenas. So these schools are directly, I don't know if I want to say profiting, because technically most of them are nonprofit, but they are gaining some kind of standing. They are improving their university as a whole with each win that is made possible by these players, and they cannot legally give any kickback, or I hesitate to use the word kickback, but let's just say compensation. Even if they wanted to compensate their players, they just can't do it. It's really unfortunate.
And you're not even talking about they get paid for their licensing rights on TV. When they're on TV playing the game, the networks give money to the school to have them on there. That's how this arrangement works. That's why they fall into these conferences. That's why there's the Pac-12. That's why there's very few schools can actually remain independent. Notre Dame is infamous for being independent. It does not actually fall within any school because it can command so much attention from the networks itself, because it does have quite a cult following in Notre Dame. So, there's all that money being made. Also, we have to remember, too, that university officials, people who are presidents, provosts, athletic directors, their pay is directly tied to, and coaches, directly tied to the bonuses that they receive from the board, the school board, because of these games. So if your athletic program does really well and you're the coach of it and you win the NCAA tournament, you might get $1.5 million of extra revenue because you made the school $20 million by all those television and things, by all the endorsements, by all the money that was got from all the revenue due to merchandising sales, the tickets that were sold, and the school president might also get an extra 10% bump in his pay. Most people don't know the athletic director, for turning around a program, might receive a $7 million compensation package at some of the larger universities for turning them from a losing season into a 0.75% winning season within 5 years. They have all these contracts that go on, so there is very much, they are profiting. The school might not be profiting, but the individuals who run the school do profit. Fact of the matter is that tuition gets raised not just to fund new schools or new buildings in the school or things like that, but also to give people extra money to entice administrators to receive extra salaries. The average university administrator in this country, the average, gets paid well over $700,000 a year. At the top 50 major universities in America. So,
wow, that is incredible.
It is. It really is. I mean, even lower level college institutions, where you're talking like in the bottom 100, they still make 200,000, 300,000, shy of what people are making, as heads of state, essentially. Our president only makes 400K, so it's kind of an interesting concept here that, yeah, they're not making profit in the school sense, but the individuals are taking from the pot, and they can authorize themselves additional raises. Simply by going to the school board and going, hey, we need to remain competitive, so let's get some more money. Well, look at all the good hard work I did. You want to keep me? Well, it's going to cost you another $1 million next year. And they do this all the time. And this money they have, and the reason they can do this and they can demand so much is that there is a little bit of extra money sitting on the table because you're not paying the people who made the money. You're extracting value. It's essentially a form of slavery, and slavery is defined as extracting value without compensation. That is actually what slavery is defined as. It's not necessarily the bonds holding somebody in chains. It is having them work and them not being able to reap the reward from their work. That is a form of enslavement. And that is exactly what we're doing today. Yes, they have a choice to be there. They're not being physically forced to be there, but it is a form of economic slavery. What choice do they really have? Are they given a real choice? If you are a sharecropper back in the 1930s or maybe in the late 1800s, and you're working a piece of small land, you can choose not to work the land and give 70%, because they used to have to give 70-80% of their crops to the owner of the land. They would only keep 30% to sell for themselves. So you could choose not to participate in that system, of course, but what would you do? Starve to death? I mean, there's not realistic choices that these people are being given, and unfortunately it's being targeted towards people who are younger, who don't have maybe the wherewithal, who do come from poorer communities, whose parents maybe didn't ever experience this level of, complexity. They graduated high school maybe, and they just went to a job. This whole college setup and all the things might be new to them. And I guarantee you that they don't go in there telling them, well, this is how much revenue we're going to make off of you, and you're not going to get any of it. They hide all that. They say, hey, would you like a chance to go to this great school? The MBA might look at you. That's exactly what they're doing. And they're selling them false dreams. A couple of them, a few percentage will go on, and they won't care because they make tons of money later on. But they themselves do realize it is a screw job too. I mean, there are a lot of professional athletes who have spoken out against this.
Yeah, and you just said they don't have a choice, or they do effectively have a choice. They don't have to do this. But let's picture yourself or anybody as a high school student playing football or basketball, and your dream is to make it to the professionals. Well, unless you're lucky enough to be Kobe Bryant, everybody has to be funneled through the same system of slavery, to use that term. And you brought up an interesting point earlier. Everybody are surrounding the game, from the officials to the equipment people. Everybody running the stadium. They all get paid except for one small group of people. Those that are actually on the court playing the game. And so let's move ahead here a little bit. So let's assume that, okay, these players deserve some kind of compensation. Now let's talk about what. I mean, do they get money? Do they get objects, cars or food? Or how do we accurately and fairly compensate these players for what they do on a day in and day out basis during the season?
Really, they are attempting right now to use non-monetary means, and a lot of it is that you'll get exposure, you'll get your dorm room paid for you, you'll get your college credits taken care of for you, your books are taken care of for you, but really that's not much. I mean, it's not really real compensation because we know the value of it's there. I would argue that colleges should just drop the concept of where they have to be students and just let anybody come. Why does the kid have to be between 18 to 25? Why do they have to be why? Why do you have to find people that are only going to go to college? They can't pass the college entrance exams. We know that. They make all sorts of exceptions. There's something called, student athlete exceptions in all academic programs across the nation. That's why Harvard's football team sucks. I mean, you do have smart people that can play football, but they're not, that's not their life. They're there to go to Harvard, They know the value of that education. So
Sure.
We should just drop that, and we should just simply say it's like a job. Hey, you want to come play for us? Cool. We'll give you this amount of money. You can play for this many years, and you can limit it if you want. You can make it only 4 or 5 years if that's what the NCAA wants to determine, because they think that they don't want to be a professional, like an NBA. They don't want to try to compete in that arena. I could understand that. This is supposed to be a starter league. We have this in Major League Baseball. It's MILB. I mean, the minor leagues.
Exactly. Minor leagues. Yep.
Yeah. So why not just make it a minor league and having it university supported?
They are out of college at that point.
Right. Yeah, having it university supported isn't a bad idea. I mean, why not? Universities aren't just meant to be the pinnacles of intellectual thinking. The term university means all-encompassing education, which can include physical education. We laugh it off and we go, "Oh, ha 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 ha, physical, whatever, blah blah blah." But athletes are at the pinnacle of human physical development. For whatever particular sport or thing, we laud the Olympics. We go, wow, look at the Olympics, it's so great. But then when it comes to sports athletes, we mock them for their inability to do basic math. Well, I'd like to see you throw a football, like Brett Favre used to. I'd like to see you try to run a play like Emmitt Smith used to.
Right, exactly.
I'd like to see you, dunk like Jordan. Let's see if you can do that. And the more important thing is that they do try to limit the amount of doping and the amount of things like this. So most of it, for the majority part, is raw human talent that's being funneled through dedication and work and effort. And the Greeks used to understand this. That's why they had the Olympics. It's not just that they wanted to run around like dumb apes. No. The Greeks were both very intellectual and very physical at the same time. And they knew that a man should try to be both. And when I say a man, I mean a person, obviously. I'm not being gender specific, but they should be both. And they know that some people are going to be better at the mind, some people are going to be better at the body, and that's okay. That's why we have two different levels of competition. And here should be no difference. I'm going to school to earn a degree, and I'm paying them to teach me something. Here, I'm going to this school to work and see if I can get a better job after this. You see, there's two different models there. One is teach me, I need to take from you, so therefore I pay you. The school turns around and goes, I need you to play for me so that we can get more exposure, and you'll learn, you'll refine yourself, but that's what you do at any job. You take the impetus on yourself to become better, and then we'll see if you get something else after this. But for the time, you get paid.
I think that universities should effectively look at their sports as not only a physical education, I guess, program, but also it's really about marketing more than anything. If the University of Alabama's football team wasn't as good as they are, they probably wouldn't be as sought after for a lot of our high school football players out there. I mean, it really is marketing and nothing but. And if we look at the players who play these sports, they are effectively just marketers for the university. They don't necessarily go out and give PowerPoint presentations. They do it on the field or on the court. But really, in a free market, it's all treated just the same. These players are definitely providing a service, and they deserve to get paid.
Right, and the university, just because these kids are out there playing basketball and bringing attention to school that way doesn't mean some of that money doesn't trickle back over into the sciences. Doesn't mean that money doesn't trickle back over into supporting the general university for marketing campaigns for other programs.
Yep.
So,
it should.
And the thought of having athletes and people who are intellectual superiors, so physical superiors and intellectual superiors, working together, to create a more superior outcome for everybody, is not a bad idea at all. In fact, that's probably the real concept of what a university should be. All forms of education in their own right. That's why certain professors make more than others, because their fields are harder. But still, you don't exclude the other ones. You still need the fine arts. You still need the humanities. It might not be what drives your school, but you should definitely include it. I mean, this would be the equivalent of, shutting out a whole sector of human development, the physical sector, because why? You want to make some extra profit, or because you think you're so smart and so superior to these students that they're not worthy to be there? I mean, I would definitely argue that they are worthy to be there. They should get paid for what their talents are. And they are, in fact, helping us a little bit in that respect, more so than even going to the NBA or going to the, NFL. Once they're at that level, that money doesn't get funneled back into our, education system. That money doesn't go back to helping doctors become doctors. That money just gets taken and thrown into big houses, cars, and Goodell's personal private fortune.
Right, which is mounting and mounting, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding. And all the owners too. So I actually support the concept of having a minor league come out of the universities. They're actually doing a good thing. They're actually getting paid. They're adding value to society, and they're helping other people add value to society. Why is that not?
And it gives people who don't want to spend $50 a ticket to go to a game another option. True, they aren't at the top of their level. They're not technically professionals at the very top yet, but you still get to see the game, you still get to see the action, and I would argue those players want it a lot more than the players that already have it. So the game is just as exciting, in my opinion, and far cheaper to go to.
Absolutely, a lot less predictable too. I mean, sometimes that's painful, you
Yes,
see horrible
true.
mistakes, but it's one of those cool things that you do get to experience the development, and the development is rapid. Unlike in the NBA or the NFL, yeah, there is more development, but it's more gradual and slow. It's refined. Things are done to much more of a calculated level. There's a lot more emphasis and pressure put on subtlety. Whereas in these minor leagues, even in the MLIB and even in the NCAA, it's not very refined. I mean, they are refined compared to high school students, but they are not at their peak. They won't become great until a couple years later when they really figure out and their bodies have finished developing completely, their minds have finished developing completely, and they start to take it as more than I'm not just so badly trying to get there, but now this is my job and I need to maintain it for the next 10 years. So that you see them become more graceful. They slow down a little bit, and the game gets a little bit more, some could argue boring, but more calculated, more cold. It's definitely more approached as if it is a job. Whereas in the NBA, in the lower leagues, it's more emotional, it's more raw, it's more, just trying and struggling and throwing yourself at the wall to see how, what sticks essentially. So I enjoy that aspect, and I think a lot of other people do as well. So I think it would do just fine. And I think we should stop this hypocrisy of, exploiting them under the guise of that they are student athletes. Let's just let them be athletes. Let them go that way. And the best part is that you could actually have a program at the university where you could give them tuition with no assistance if they don't play. In other words, you're not quite good enough yet to actually be on the court, but instead of denying you outright, you come here, you pay us, and we will teach you to try to the best of your natural abilities to become a player. And get paid for it while you're here. So you can even have that whole other path instead of having all these high school kids who are on the edge just getting completely cut off.
Well, looks like we are both agreed here. The NCAA and universities profit a lot, or at least their revenues skyrocket a lot during these times of the season, especially right now during March Madness for basketball. I'm glad that we're agreed. I'm glad that we both believe that our college-aged athletes should be paid what they deserve to be paid based on the services that they provide to their university. So what do you guys think? Let us know. Our website is at foolsforthought.com. Let us know what you think. We are always open to different opinions and critiques. And that is it, guys. Thank you for listening to show number 10 of Fools for Thought. We will be back with you next time. See you later. Bye-bye.